Here we go again. Hello again, PCQIs, and welcome back. We are on the Listeria hazard analysis validation section of our exercise and the actual program that we're putting together for one of our clients. So on this process evaluation under the validation section, some of the topics which I'll read off the question to you and for you. The first one is, was there a recent move or modification of the production line? So when looking at the validation process, now that we did the hazard analysis, we're beginning to ask those questions. If there's a yes on it, obviously we're going to evaluate it for food safety implication and the possible modification of our PE concerns with Listeria. Next one is, was there a recent equipment brought from storage or another plant and installed in the process flow, right? So sometimes with growing activities, you need to have additional equipment being moved from one section of the plant intended for different activities. Now that you need it, what does that look like, right? So for that, if it's a yes, I take a look at the, was it calibrated? Was it fully clean and sanitized? All of those sanitation controls that, for that particular equipment coming into play to the current environment, obviously. So right now it's a foreign equipment in a way, and you got to treat it as such with caution, right? So next one is, was there a recent equipment breakdown in the production area, right? Or in that production line? Like, let's say you are in the middle of production, a certain part of maybe the blender goes down and somebody's got to go in, or a former machine. It could be your freezer blaster, IQF system, or whatnot. Whatever that is, is it now being broken down in during production in that area, right? So if it is yes, then you're going to have to then take a look at the food safety implication of that as a PCQI, as well as your cleaning and sanitation part of it prior to that use. Okay. Was there or currently performing construction or major modification being made? So this is a big source of contaminants, obviously, just on dust. Sometimes there's power interruption because of major construction. They're opening up sewage lines, installing backflow systems and things like that. So those do my validation process. I tend to ask those questions and then kind of take a look at those procedures of how, prior to making those modifications, what are the safety protocols, right, in containing those contaminants. Has there been a new addition to personnel in performing sanitation and production activities that are unfamiliar to the Listeria PEM plan or to your process? Obviously, companies, sometimes it's a revolving door. I mean, let's call it what it is. People get into the food manufacturing business, and it's hard work, guys, right? It really is. And you have language barrier sometimes, and different level of education. Sometimes facilities, they don't really have that openness culture when it comes to food safety. They do have their policies that are coming from HR, but at the end of the day, it's not enough. Best practices out there, the way I've been trained and I continue to train, is the principle of I'll do it, you watch, then we do it together. Then you'll do it, I watch, then you do it alone. So there's a lot of shadowing when we're working with facilities that are implementing I call it the openness food safety culture. Not one person only knows and bark orders and whatnot, but everybody is responsible for food safety, as we all know. So you have to take a look at that on personnel. In the hazard analysis, there's a lot of redirecting of potential sources in contaminants based on us humans. We're the one who's doing the work, and we have certain habits that we need to adjust, right? So that's why that is included on that question. Next one, it says, do personnel wash his hands and change his gloves before handling food as part of the separate function program? So what I mean by that is, if you are performing, let's say you walked in, you're doing pre-weigh, and you're doing the you got these pallets of materials from the staging area, and you're trying to prevent cross-contamination, and you're handling a bulk product that you're only going to take partial of, right? Best practices would be, you would change, you would do your hand washing, change your gloves, handle that material only, and when you're done, before closing it out, you would close out and perform the hand washing and the gloving maintenance again prior to touching the other materials that you're going to be pre-weighing. So you're actually separating those, okay? So, all right. Are production period considered to be heavy or non-stop or continuous? So as a potential source for this particular contaminant, which is Listeria at this point, so that really plays effect on that growth, right? So we've had clients swab for Listeria during production, because they're just running 8 hours, or they're backlog, and and some of them are planning on running 24 hours or days on end. We have witnessed some of our clients and facilities run for 2 to 3 days and have an interim cleaning and spot checks and whatnot, and then do a deep cleaning on the 6th or 7th day. So it all depends on your activities, obviously, for you to measure your risk. So those plays when it comes to sources of Listeria, it is something that we look at and validate for that. Okay, was there ever an incident where the drains backed up? So this happens in a lot of old buildings. Obviously, even in modern ones, I've seen it where the backflow valve that was installed had failed during installation process, or lack thereof. They forgot it and something happened, and it would come out. So when that happened, obviously it's a big problem, right? So when you're validating your hazard analysis for this particular Listeria hazard analysis, you have to ask that question, and what would that look like? Okay. Our products of food materials have a tendency to be caught or hang up on equipment during production. So depending on your materials that you're handling, sometimes you have, you're putting them in your process and things just pops up and they get stuck in nooks and crannies of your equipment. Those are been identified as also a source for Listeria. Obviously, once you're doing your sanitation and they're cleaning all that up, make sure those are being removed. Doing your pre-op as a PCQI, pay attention to those. Are raw or under-processed foods placed in an area designated for cooked products? So this is a concern when you are dealing in a smaller facility or smaller space where everything is kind of crammed into one area. When you have raw product being prepared, and then they're making cooked product on one side, and it's just right there. It's just waiting. It's just a disaster waiting to happen, obviously, for cross contamination. So our products being produced frequently change, right? So what I mean by this is sometimes you might be making one product and you're just changing flavors, flavor profile, or colors. We're talking about there are plants out there that are co-packers, and it could be something else today and something else tomorrow, right? So there's a lot of sanitations protocols that need to be met in between, but sometimes there are clients that says, well, we have this one product, that's so similar to this other product that we actually make, and we want you to make that, make this one first and then make that one second. But we just want to, like, a simple customer requirement of a wash down and whatnot. The thing with that is, if there's a contamination on the first one, and then you discovered it on the second one, you have a lot of product disposal to do, or reprocessing if you are doing cooked products. So that question is asked. That our packaging materials, boxes, labels, film, etc., frequently change on the packaging line. So this is another aspect of controlling the traffic. So obviously your packaging line is at the end of your line, and that's normally typically against a door that can access packaging material right outside. So now you got somebody that's crossing over, coming back. If it's labels, obviously you're changing labels, you're touching again, right? And you're touching the labeler, label applicator. So all of these dynamics as a PCQI, you need to take a look at those and have preventive measures, from that person going in and out of that packaging room. What I'd like to see is your hygiene practices again, your hand washing program, your glove maintenance. Those are so important. And if you are bringing in package material and the pallet cover, all of that is secured and you're moving it in, go through your pallet controls, right? Because you're coming into, you're thinking, well, it's in the packaging line, it's at the end of the line. But if you look and there's no separation room, like some facility I went to, it's an actual room where there's a hole in the wall and products are just coming out. Totally different game. But if it's an open wall and you can see everybody on white coats and you are wearing a blue coat, right? So there's that separate function. And if you're wearing a white coat, obviously when you see something down the line or up the line, you're gonna get called up to help. So as a PCQI, you need to pay attention to what that person is gonna do if they are asked to assist, okay? Because they were just on a different zone, and next thing 2 or 3 steps into it, they're knee deep on touching finished product going into packaging, okay? Are forming pockets or molds frequently changed during production? So this is another one for cook or blended products. Like I said, this might not apply to your process, but there are molded products out there, being cooked or basically being formed and go through IQF. Is the line speed frequently changed during production? So this is, so this one plays effect on line speed. It's just not your conveyor system going, but really your movement of raw materials, materials and personnel. So sometimes companies or facilities, they're shorthanded. It happens, people leave and people are let go. So you might be processing X amount of units per hour. All of a sudden there's an influx of new personnel, which is now also, as a PCQI, we have to take a look at that as a threat because of lack of training in that process, and they're shadowing. So they're just nervous in a new environment where everything is loud. The machine, there's a lot of communication of what to do. So you need to pay attention to that. And once you have a lot of people sometimes, and then the production lead or production manager says, okay, it's going to be faster, right? More people, more activities, more potential sources of contamination. The other one here says, are personnel used interchangeably for packaging raw and cooked foods? So on this one, sometimes is during the whole process, you have people crossing over. I've made examples of a packaging personnel now assisting production personnel. So this is the same example of where you have somebody next to you that was handling the product raw, and then it goes around the line, it's coming to you cooked, and he gets stuck or you get stuck, and that person now crosses over and helps you out. What does that look like, right? So has increased production causes you to perform wet cleaning of lines, equipment, and utensils in the same room as lines are running the product, okay? I see this a lot, all right? So certain things happen, lead gets on the radio, calls for help. Hey, we have an equipment or a part of our process, it's inoperable. And the blue team comes in, right? So what does that look like? For me as a PCQI, I look at maintenance that would come in. One is, did they change PPE, right? I'm in a middle of production. I'm in white coat area, and then you have your blue team based on their blue uniform. That's why I'm calling them blue team. And by the way, sanitation, because of the raincoat, majority of them are yellow. I call them the yellow team. So now we have the blue team comes in. For me, I look at that and says, okay, he's just a walking contaminant at this point, right? I don't know where he's been. He could have been outside dealing with the trash compactor. He could have been up in the attic area dealing with lights and fixtures, right? What does he have on his person, on his uniform? What did he rub against? Did he lay on the floor to fix a machine? So all of these things that are going through my mind, right? And I'm looking at him as a big red X. I'm like, okay, buddy, what do we need to do? So basically, I want him to go in and change, right, and remove all of that stuff. Thus is re-gearing of PPE to for food safety, hand washing, and all of that. And then once they break things down, right, obviously the yellow team will come in, the sanitation. Sometimes you have a hybrid person. There's a production person that's also sanitation qualified, right? Okay, our heat exchangers been compromised, like pinholes, etc. So this is also a source of contaminant. If you are using heat exchangers on your production line, this is something that you need to pay attention to, because obviously the temperature is there. It's nice and cozy around that environment, for pathogens to grow. They love it. They get really cozy, and they got food products. They got something to eat, which is the raw materials that you're making. So they're very happy. Okay, so take a look at that as your visual inspection as well, if you are using heat exchangers in your production line. Our equipment, parts, tubs, screens, utensils clean on the floor. So I see this sometimes on sanitations when I'm making an observation. So typically, when I work with you, is I actually spend time with sanitation. I'd come in whenever the production stops, and I make an observation how that second shift or first shift, whichever your system is, the production personnel kind of hand over that room to the sanitation team, and how the sanitation team moved around and start their process on pre-rinsing, evacuating waste and things like that. And the other one says, our waste properly maintained, clean, and sanitized. So your waste bins and trash cans. So these are very overlooked, right? Especially when it comes to the sanitation part, because they're using them, right? They have those big bins on the side, and they're using it as they're cleaning it out. But at the end of that process, when you're, as a PCQI, you're looking at those sanitation protocols, make sure you have those procedures of how to clean and sanitize your waste bins inside the production line. So pay attention to that, right? So make sure that is covered on your sanitation process when you're doing your PPE stations. And we'll talk about that as well. Our personnel comes in contact or performs separate activities, maintains hand washing and glove maintenance. So this is I've touched this a lot in this hazard analysis for this particular customer, for the fact that for me this is very, very vital. Especially if you're looking at, I'll give you an example. We all go to fast food. So, if you're watching them prepare the food you just ordered, pay close attention. Like if they're in one part of it, you see that person bends over, grabs a box of something, opens it up and grabs a flavoring and whatnot. And it could be just packaging material, and then she goes straight to your salad, right? Okay, right? You know what I mean? You're going, what just happened there? So, what I'd like to see is for that person to remove his or her gloves and goes to the hand washing station, go through, the hand washing procedures again and the glove maintenance, right? Putting in a fresh new gloves, and then to start touching the the food, especially if it's coming to me, right? So I don't like to be sick, okay? The next one is, are there recirculating pumps and lines not cleaned and sanitized during sanitation activities? So this one, sometimes you have, depending on your equipment, these are type of systems that are closed and they are maintained on a regular basis. But some of these systems, right, we need to pay attention to because of accumulation of, it could be grease, right? So there's a lot of aspects, if there's leakages, something that's oozing out of it, and sometimes they're out of sight. So we need to, you need to, as a PCQI, you need to ask those questions for accessing those, right? Is there discriminate use of high pressure hose in the cleaning, right? So this one is quite interesting because a lot of, if you are looking at your wet process, majority of the time you have high pressure hoses. Number one is to do the pre-rinse. So all of that stuff is just going all over the place, right? Because for you, you're okay. You got your rain gear on, you got your goggles, you got your protective equipment, and you're just going at it, okay? And all of these aerosols are all over the place, and then your buddy comes next to you and asks you a question. Hey, where can I find that sanitizer, that scrubber, or whatever, right? And next thing you know, you're pointing that high pressure hose on the floor. Okay, so now you have all of these contaminants from the floor. It's in your environment. It's on you. It's on the walls. It's on the utensils. On the shelf. It's on the shelf. It's all over the place, right? But you're saying, well, I'm going to clean it anyways, okay? So, all right, let's take that argument. You're going to clean and sanitize the entire room. Good on you, right? Now, you haven't broken that practice, so now you have your pre-ops area where you have QA that would go in there, and let's say they're doing their ATPs and they fail it. So sometimes it's just a spot check, and there you go. There's that guy again with that same habit, and he's waiting, right? He's cleaning whatever he needs to be cleaning, and while he's standing there waiting for instruction, he's pointing that thing on the floor. And you're probably saying, well, we sanitized the floor, Arnell, right? It's clean, right? Well, guess what? QA just walked in the room. How do we know her shoes from streets, which she is wearing, right? Now she's walking all over that floor, and you're doing that exercise. So even though you've been in there as a as a person assigned to the sanitation team, and you never left, and you're going, I've been stepping on all of these things all day, sanitizer, squat, whatever, that you considered yourself clean and sanitized on the floor level. But there are other people that walk by, crossing those zones that are a threat at that point. Now it's all over. It's up in the air, right? So our last one is, are there inappropriate use of foot bath in the processing area? So on this one, what I look for on this one, if there are foot bath, is the solution there being maintained? Does somebody from QC or QA go there and measure the concentration for that, or replenish it, right? Some facility, they have the autofoamer that just squirts out the solution every 15 minutes, every 10 minutes, or through a sensor, right? So there's a lot of system out there. So as a PCQI, you still need to ask those questions. Say, that's great, we have it. What are the parts per million? How do we verify those solutions? Concentrate works, right? When's the last time somebody cleaned that foot bath or replaced it and whatnot? So whatever that is. So anyway, so that's where we're at on the validation section part of our validation form for the process evaluation. Thank you, everybody. Like I said, thank you, PCQI, for what you do. And if you need further clarification in some of this process, please contact me, info@consultarinc.com. Thanks, everyone.